On you.
Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. We're going to be talking about preparing, sharing, and signing documents inside of Lone Wolf Transactions zipForm edition. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jackson Beaudelaire. I'm a transaction and training supervisor at C.A.R. I was a realtor myself for about 10 years up in the Los Angeles Beach Cities area. Real estate's a great career. It served me very well, but I did move into an education role because I want to make sure that all of you realtors are confident, competent, and efficient in this zipForm software that is so vital to our business. This is where we get our forms. It's where we manage our transactions, where we get things signed. And this is where our final closed files live for at least 5 years inside of zipForm. And we'll talk about that in a minute. On the agenda today, we're going to talk about transaction templates and why they are important. And as part of that, we're going to talk about folders and organization. Using folders, organization inside of your templates and inside of your transactions is going to make sure that you are organized and that you're not losing things, which is very, very important. We have a lot going on as realtors. We're showing property, we're prospecting, and managing our transactions should be the least of our worries because we do have such a powerful transaction management tool that is our zipForm account. We're going to talk about how to log emails using a feature called email to transaction. And then we'll talk about digital signatures and how zipCommunity and the collaboration tools inside of Zip all kind of fit together. Okay. I do want to talk about other training opportunities that are available to you. So Lone Wolf, formerly ZipLogix, they have their own training videos and training webinars. These are specific to the software. They are not specific to California. So if you do want training from someone like myself or my associate Ed, you can go on C.A.R..org and find our webinar calendar. There's also video players underneath that calendar that have all of our past webinar recordings. If you are remotely interested in any of the webinars that are on there, definitely sign up for them. Even if you don't attend, you're still going to get a link to the recording. So regardless of attendance, you will receive a link to the recording 24 hours after the broadcast has ended. There is phone support from Lone Wolf. You can call 1-866-CRY-WOLF 24 hours a day during the week, 10 to 10 on the weekends. But much more important is your member benefit, which is the customer contact center at C.A.R. We have people on staff ready to take your call for any questions regarding your membership, zipForm, the legal hotline, anything that you need that pertains to a member benefit or your membership at C.A.R. Call the hotline, call their customer care. They will help you. And if it's something that they can't help you with, if it's a zipForm question that's a little too much for them, they're going to send it up to me. I'm going to be your liaison between Lone Wolf and you, the member, and make sure that things get done. Okay. Let's jump into Zip and take a look at what we're talking about today. So we're going to talk about the use of templates and the use of folders and organization tools. So if you are not familiar, there's a difference between a transaction and a template. A transaction is a live file. It has an address. It has clients. It has working documents in it. Whereas a template is something that we prep ahead of time. We make sure that we have a little bit of data and a set of documents that we have prepped ahead of time. So the analogy that I like to give is if you had a file folder and inside of that folder was the only thing in there was a listing agreement with your name and your broker affiliation. Let's say you had 3 of those folders on your desk. If someone called you and said, be at my house in 10 minutes to list my house, you could grab the folder and run out the door. You've prepped a folder of documents and data that is evergreen that can be used for any client, and you've prepared it prior to actually needing it. That's what we're doing with templates. So let's click on my transaction templates here. You can see here that I have several templates. I have a listing template, a purchase template, a mobile home listing template, a vacant land listing template. And if we notice on these, get a little zoomy in tool. If we notice on these are set to be auto templates. That means that anytime that I start a lease listing and the category is residential, this template is going to apply. The same goes for my purchase template. Anytime I start a purchase transaction and in the category is residential, this template will automatically apply. Same for the listing. You get the idea. Now, I have a template here for my residential disclosures. This is not set to be an auto template. This is something that I will manually apply when I need it. And that goes for my escrow checklist as well. This is my final closing checklist. It has several tasks, lots of placeholders in it. And this is something that I will apply once I open escrow. I don't want it to automate at all. I just want to say, oh, I'm opening escrow, slap that template on there. Templates are like a rubber stamp. It's you're stamping it on the transaction itself, and all of the documents and data are on that transaction. That doesn't mean that you can't change the data in the transaction itself, but we have this die that we're stamping our transactions with to get us off on the right foot. So let's open up my purchase template and we'll take a look at what's in there. So as you can see, I have a folder. How do we create a folder? Well, up in the top on the menu here, we have a button that says, you guessed it, add folder. When we click that button, it's going to ask us, what do you want to name the folder? Name it, hit OK. Now you have a folder. Now folders don't seem like they're that big of a deal, but when you are in the throes of a real busy transaction, having folders and organizing yourself is going to save your life. Okay. Inside of my purchase documents, I have a cover sheet, I have an RPA, I have a finance worksheet, and then I have a couple placeholders. And that takes me to my next point here. Placeholders, as you can see, these dotted line, this is just an empty null spot. I have named these placeholders pre-approval and proof of funds because this is a purchase transaction, and there isn't an actual form for the proof of funds or the pre-approval, but I want to give myself a visual reminder of something that I want to add at a later date. So I've put these placeholders in there. To create a placeholder, we click add document, and then we click create placeholder. We name it just like the folder. We tell the system if it's required or not. We click OK, and now we have a placeholder. We'll take a look at what filling placeholders looks like when we actually apply this to a real transaction. But let's talk a little bit about templates and how we can streamline the process just a little bit further. So in my RPA, there are a couple check boxes and little pieces of information that I'm generally going to be checking that box or putting that piece of data in there for every purchase. So why not put it in a template so that I don't have to remember to do it every time? So for example, on my AD form, I checked the box for buyer because I'm going to be representing a buyer at minimum one. So why not check this box and never have to think about checking that box ever again? That's what I'm doing. I have my broker affiliation, I have my name and my DRE numbers in there so that that's always in there. As we scroll through, you'll see that there's no buyers or sellers. You'll see that there's no address because this needs to be applicable going forward on all new transactions. On my actual RPA, I check the seller, buyer box. I put obviously my broker affiliation in there. I put a 30-day escrow. I'm not telling you how to fill out the contract. I'm just showing you functionality, okay? So if I generally write 30-day closes on my RPAs, why not put it in the template? I have an interest rate and a points to not exceed. I've shortened some of my contingencies. These are generalities. I just want to start off with some placeholder data. I'm very, very big on placeholders, placeholder data, actual placeholders inside of Zip. I like to have a visual reminder, and I like to have data inside of my transaction that generalizes what I'm going to need. And then again, when I actually am writing up this offer, if that 10-day loan contingency is not going to make sense, I'll change it in the transaction. But my template started me off with 10 rather than 17. So I'm just setting up my own modifications to the RPA prior to actually applying this template to the transaction. So you get the idea. We have a template that has some documents, some information, a few placeholders, and I'm using folders to create some organization. So let's back out and take a look at my listing template and see how that differs. So we write a lot of offers and not all of them stick. So my organization in my purchase template was minimal. I have a folder, I have a couple pieces of information. My listing template, though, has much more organization. Because when we take a listing, we are much, much more likely for that to end in a check. So I want to start off very strong with my template for my listing. So I have a folder for listing documents, very similar to my purchase template. I have a cover sheet, a couple placeholders, a listing agreement. Inside the listing agreement, I have a few pieces of information. Again, I check the seller box on the AD form. The actual listing agreement, I have 6%, 90 days. I have my MLS affiliation in there. But I also have folders for offers. And under that folder, I have a folder for counter offers. I have a folder for closing documents, and I have a folder for listing photos. I'm keeping myself organized. A lot of people ask me, well, why do you have the listing photos in there? What's the point of that? Well, the point is this is a transaction management system that is stored in the cloud. So why not keep everything pertaining to this transaction inside of Zip? Like I said, when you start a transaction, it's initially going to be retained for 7 years. Once you set something as closed, it's going to be 5 years from the closing date. So you are legally obligated to have all these documents for 3 years. Zip's going to hold on to them for a minimum of 5. So why not put everything in there? I don't want to take up space in my Google Drive or my Dropbox or a hard drive or external hard drive with the photos from this listing. I might as well leave them in Zip. When I get a listing in that same area a year later, 6 months later, I know exactly where the photos are so I can create a postcard. Use zipForm's storage because it's included in your dues and you're not paying anything extra to have massive files inside of zipForm. That's the organization that I like to use for my templates. Are there any questions on that? I see someone asked, how do I get to zipForm? A couple of different ways you can get to zipForm. You can go to CAR.org. I think you can log in through your association website as well. Lots of different ways to get to Zip. So what are we talking about here? Transaction templates, folders, and organization. I think it's time to apply a template to an actual transaction. Take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to go to my transactions here. So again, we're leaving the templates side of this. Now we're going to apply this to an actual transaction. So for this, I'm going to click new for a new transaction. This is going to be a new purchase for this time. So before I name it, I'm going to use MLS Connect to bring in information about this particular property. I know you guys don't use Claw, but I'm logged into Claw right now. So I'm going to use that. Functionality is the same. Your MLS is going to show up in this drop down here. Okay. I'm going to grab the listing ID from the MLS. I'm going to throw it in here. This is a residential property. I'm going to include the property photo and I'm going to click find. Now the system is going to pull the information from the MLS regarding this particular property: address, city, state, zip, the other agent's information, the list price, $675, $438, nice round number. Looks like this was listed on July 9th. It pulled in all this information. I don't have to key this in on my own, which is very, very helpful. So I'm going to say use listing. I'm going to use the address of the property to name the transaction. And then if we notice down here where the templates are, we can select a template, but why do that? That's no fun. If we click residential, our template automatically applied. Now, some of you are going to say, well, okay, how did you set it to automatically apply? And you're right, I didn't go over that. Let's talk about that real quick. I'm going to start this transaction and then we can come back to it. All right, let's talk about the template. So when we start a new template, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, I apologize. When we start a new template, we tell the system what type of template we want. Let's say it's a new listing. We name it, we give it a category. If you notice down here, we have auto apply options, right? By default, it's going to be do not automatically apply. But if we want to set this to automatically apply, we can check that little radio button right here. And if you notice, when I haven't selected a category yet, but you see this little asterisk here. When I select residential, it's going to say residential. When I select commercial, condominium, it's going to change the category, and that changes the automation trigger. So anytime I start a listing and it has the same category as I'm choosing here, it's going to automatically apply. That's the way that we automate our templates. Now, if you already have a template and you have not set it to be an auto template, that's okay. You can hover over, click the little blue button, hit template details, and you can change your auto apply options here to suit. Okay. That's the way that we can automate our templates. Let's go back to the transaction. So when I started that new transaction, I used MLS Connect and it automatically applied my template. All three of those things happened. A new transaction was created with property information from the MLS and my template. So I haven't really done too much to this transaction yet. I named it. I told the system what MLS ID it was, and the rest of it just was automated. So for my property summary, I have a street address, city, state, zip, the county, school district, the zoning, the APN number, the year built. I didn't have to key in any of this information. So I'm cutting down on transcription errors. I'm cutting down on the likelihood that I'm going to key in something wrong. That's kind of nice. That's some risk mitigation there. So now I can fill out my purchase summary. My offer date is going to be today. My offer is going to be pretty aggressive, so it's going to expire tomorrow. We have not gotten accepted yet, obviously. This was listed for $675, so we're going to come in at $707, something nice and round like that. Our contract date is going to be today. Closing date, I said 30 days, right? So let's just say we're going to do the 9th, and we're going to take possession that same day. These two pieces of information, these two dates, these are placeholders. They're not actual dates because I haven't submitted my offer yet. But I want a general placeholder date for when this may close. Once I get an actual closing date, an actual possession date, I'll update it. But for now, I just want to have a general idea of when things are going to happen. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe that doesn't help you. It's to each his own, you know. This is just the way that works for me. Okay. So now that we have that information in there, we can move on to working on our parties. So as we move through Zip, we notice that we're working on the summary. We're going to work on our parties. We're going to look at documents. Everything moves from left to right. Okay. There is organization and there is rhyme and reason to the way things are set up in Zip, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it. There is. So now I can work on the parties. And if you notice, I have a listing agent, I have myself, I have a disclosure company, and I have a home warranty company. These came in from my template. So did my information. This listing agent came in from MLS Connect. So now I can add my buyer in here. Now, if you notice, when I hover over these parties, there's this blue address book that comes up on the right-hand side. If I don't click on that address book, it's going to bring up, you know, a blank party. Pretty normal. If I do click on my address book, it's still going to bring up that blank one behind it, but it's also going to bring up my address book. And I do a lot of business with my client, Ricardo. So that's going to fill in his information here. Now, let's say that you don't have anybody in your address book. That's okay. When you fill in all their information, there's a little button here that says save to address book. You can put in a category and you can hit save, and that will save this contact to your address book. So if you do transact with them again, their information will be there for you. I think that's pretty helpful. That works pretty well for me. If you do have maybe a CSV file or V cards for your contacts, maybe you want to bring in contacts from Google or your Yahoo account. Maybe you have an old top producer account that has lots of clients in it. You can do that on the contacts tab of your transaction right here. Okay. This will give you the ability to upload your contacts and sync your contacts. It's not going to be a back and forth sync. It's a one-way sync into Zip. But that is an option for you. So now I have a buyer, I have a listing agent, I have a selling agent, I have a couple vendors, a couple disclosures and home warranty, and I am ready to move on to the documents. So you might notice that this archive folder created itself. Why? Well, this is a banker box. This is a file folder. What do you put in a banker box? File folders. So this is an archive, and it truly is like an archive. It's things that we don't want to delete, we don't want to get rid of, but we don't want to look at them. So my purchase documents, these are all documents that once I get my offer signed and got my offer submitted, I don't really need any of these documents anymore, but I don't necessarily want to delete them. So because I have them in a folder, I can just drag it to the archive, and then I don't have to look at them anymore. They still exist. They're still in a folder, but they're under the archive. So I don't have to clutter my transaction with things that I've already dealt with and I don't need to be actively working with anymore. That's another nice way of organizing my transaction, right? So I don't necessarily want that folder in my archive. So I'm going to pull it out, back out. All right. Before we move on into the documents, let's talk about logging emails, because that is a very, very important part. So on our summary here, we have a couple buttons. This one says email to transaction, and this one is a fax cover sheet. Now, let's talk about the fax cover sheet real quick. We all have those clients that don't have a scanner. They don't know how to scan a document with their phone. They have a fax machine though, and they say, I'll fax it to you. And you say, I don't have a fax machine. Well, you can receive faxes directly into your zipForm account. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. This is a barcode of sorts. This is a cover sheet for the fax, obviously. Any fax sent with this cover sheet will be scanned by the system when they send it to this number, and it's going to go into this transaction. It's going to be one big PDF file, everything that gets faxed in, one big PDF file, and it's going to create its own folder called inbox. You don't need an eFax number to receive faxes. You can receive faxes directly into your zipForm account. How often are you going to use this? Probably not much, but when you need it, and you have it. It's there for you. You're not paying anything extra for that. That's a feature of the system. Okay. But much more current and modern is email to transaction. So this is a unique email that is going to accept documents, the actual email itself, and more directly into your transaction by including this transaction email address in your email communications. This is doesn't seem to make a lot of sense where this email is coming from, but if you notice this 9350004, that is our transaction ID. You don't need to remember that. It's a transaction ID, a unique identifier at docs.ziplogics.com. So what do you do with this email? I, in practice, would save it to my phone as a contact. I would save it in my Outlook as or my Gmail as a contact. And so anytime I'm emailing about this particular transaction, because this is unique to one transaction, anytime I would be talking to my client, the other agent, the lender, escrow, inspectors, anytime I'm corresponding via email, I would CC this email address on all correspondence. The same way that if you were working with a TC or an assistant, you would say, oh, please, CC my assistant or my transaction coordinator on all correspondence. Are the other parties always going to remember to CC the other person? No, of course not. But it's okay. When you get an email that they haven't CC'd them, just forward it on to the transaction. In practice, how would I use this? So let's say I'm sitting at lunch, maybe I'm with a client, maybe I'm not, and I get an email and there's an escrow amendment that needs to be signed. I'm not ready to act upon it right at that moment, but I might as well forward that email onto the transaction, because once I get back to my computer, that document that needs to be acted upon will already be in my transaction, because I've sent not only the correspondence, the email itself, I've also sent the attachment. And that email, the body of the email and the attachment are going to go into the inbox folder that creates itself. So let's look at what that actually looks like in practice. I'm going to copy this email address. I'm going to send my clients an email. All right. So I'm going to be sending my clients an email. I'm going to CC the transaction. I'm going to say, let's talk about the deal. And just so that we don't have to watch me type out a bunch of random words, I'm just going to grab some Latin. So I have body of the email. I'm going to attach a document. Let's attach, let's say my, oh, no, I wouldn't send that's fine. I'm going to send the pre-approval. So I have an email going to my client, CCing the transaction with a subject line, an attachment, and a body of the email. I'm going to send that out. It's going to take a minute for that to actually get to the system so we can move on from here, and we'll come back to this concept. But the most useful tool against any dispute in a transaction is going to be a communication log. And if you are CCing this email address on all of your correspondence with people pertaining to this transaction, by the end of the transaction, you're going to have a fantastic communication log that's time and date stamped. And you didn't really have to think about it aside from remembering to CC that email. It's pretty powerful. Okay. Login emails, we covered that. We're going to come back to it. So let's talk about the documents now. Let's talk about some of our smart form features here. So in my RPA, there's several smart form features that are going to look out for me and make sure that I don't look like an amateur, right? So if I'm writing an offer and it's going to be all cash, if we notice paragraph 5 and 5B, let's go down to paragraph 5 and 5B. Paragraph 5B, all cash offer. If an all cash offer is specified in 3A, no loan is used to purchase the property. So this agreement is not contingent on the buyer obtaining a loan. So that means that the loan contingency here doesn't need to be checked because that's already specified, that if I check the box in 3A, then that means I don't need it. I also don't need to put in loan information because no loan is needed to close this deal. So I have some information in here, but if I click all cash, all that information gets grayed out, and I don't have the ability to add loan information. My loan contingency is now not a thing, right? The system is looking out for you, and it doesn't want you to put in information that's not necessary. The same goes for whenever you see a checkbox that pertains to another CAR form. So for example, if this is going to be an FHA loan, obviously I need the FHA VA amendatory clause. So when I click that, it's going to successfully add the FHA bundle. That's pretty helpful, right? Same goes for seller financing. It's going to add the SFA. That disclosure is now going to be made to the, oh, it looks like my email came in, my pre-approval and my email came in. Perfect. The other smart form feature that I want you to know about is when I have a lot to say. You know, we have 3 lines here, a little bit less than 3 lines, but maybe I have a lot to say in this other terms. What happens to all that text? Does it get cut off? Is it truncated in some way? If I preview this form, if I get a PDF preview, you'll see this is a 26-page bundle, normally, the RPA and all of the bundled disclosures and addenda. But when I preview this, I overflowed, hint, hint, I overflowed that text field. So when I get to the actual text field here, I go past it now. It says, see text overflow addendum, TOA, paragraph 1. And this 26-page bundle is now 27 pages. Why? Because there's a TOA that got automatically attached to the bundle. And it tells me in the RPA, section R, and the other terms, this is the entirety of what I typed in there. Nothing was cut off, nothing is truncated, and I didn't need to manually add an addendum. So gone are the days that you create an addendum, fill out a bunch of stuff on it, and then forget to attach it, forget to send it, forget to email it, forget to get it signed. That doesn't happen anymore. because when you overflow a text field, this is automatically going to happen. The TOA is automatically going to attach. It's going to put the entirety of what you typed in there. The TOA is not something that you can find in the library. It hides in the wings, and when you need it, it comes out on its own. It attaches on its own. The system is not going to let you get cut off with your text. It's going to automatically just overflow that text. And if you overflow the overflow, it's just going to keep adding TOAs until you have everything covered. And as you notice, there's a signature block on that page. So it's a part of the transaction, part of the bundle. Very helpful. Okay. We talked about smart form features. Talked about the TOA. Let's briefly talk about the email to transaction, this thing that just came through. It created its own folder called inbox. In there, we have the body of the email, time and date stamped, who sent it, when they sent it. There's the entirety of the message. And then it also attached that pre-approval from the email. It also made its own PDF. So if you notice in my purchase documents here, I have a placeholder for the pre-approval. How do I get it in there? A couple different ways. I can click right on the placeholder and say fill with an existing document. Click my pre-approval there. And now my pre-approval has been filled in, and it's no longer in the inbox. It's in my purchase documents now. Or organization, beautiful thing, right? All right, so let's move on to talking about collaboration tools and digital signatures. And then we should be able to wrap this up with a nice little bow. So my client, he was able to successfully get his offer. He got his offer accepted. So at this point now, I need him to fill out the buyer investigation elections. Maybe some of you don't use that form. Maybe some of you do. Either way, he is going to fill out, I'm going to use my C.A.R library. He's going to fill out the buyer investigation elections. Now, when I open this up, I'll notice that I can say this is BIE number 1. I have access to the address, but I do not have access to any of these checkboxes. This is only editable by buyer 1. And you may ask yourself, how do I get this filled out? Some of you may say, oh, I'm just going to send it via digital signature, because that works, right? When I send this to my client, I'm just going to prep it real quick. When I am ready to send this to my client, the system, the digital link in this case, system is going to put all these checkboxes here, right? And then they're going to sign it as well. So they are two things at the same time. They're filling it out and they're signing it. And I'm sure that as a realtor, as a professional, you see the problem with that. They're filling it out. They're filling something out that they don't fill out every day. And they're signing it at the same time. This is going to create a problem. They're going to fill this out incorrectly. It gets even worse when you send the TDS, the SVQ, disclosures, extremely important disclosures to your client, and they blindly fill them out in digital signatures. They are going to make a mistake. And us, the realtor, as the one getting paid to make sure that they don't make mistakes, we need to make sure that they don't make mistakes. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by giving them a secure, encrypted portal to fill out these forms, not sign them, but fill them out. And we can do that through zipCommunity. So on the Parties tab, you will see that we have a share button right here. But if you notice that little icon, that share icon is also in the corner of each one of these parties, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click the little share icon for Ricardo, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to allow him to do? And at this point, I want him to be able to edit. I also want him to be able to upload if he needs to. The stop sharing date is set to 30 days. I'm going to turn that off. And the reason why I'm going to turn that off is because I'm going to end up using this collaboration tool, zipCommunity. At the end of the transaction, I'm going to provide my client with all of the closing documents in a secure, encrypted, password protected, branded to me environment. Rather than giving them a CD, a flash drive, a Dropbox link, a Google Drive link, again, taking up your cloud space, let's utilize the tools that are included in our member dues to provide our clients with the documents that they need. So I'm giving my client editing privileges. He has the ability to upload documents if he needs to, and we're going to include that BIE form. Okay. I'm going to click save and send. We're going to be send using zipForm. I have a little box so I can add text here. I'm on a Mac. I'm using dictation. Most computers have dictation now. It's not a part of Zip. Let's see. Please fill this out to the best of your ability and let me know if you have any questions, period. Yeah. So I'm going to send this to my client. My client is going to receive an email from me inviting him to collaborate. There's that original email that I had sent. And there's the collaboration email. So there's the text, please fill this out to the best of your ability. Now this link that came into their email, this is a deep, deep link. There's a lot of data embedded in this link. So when they click that view documents button, this is not just a general URL. This is very specific to them. If they've never logged in before, they're going to click create an account. And look at that. It already knows their name. It already knows that they're the buyer. It already knows their email address. All they have to do is create a username that it already suggested one, and then create a password. Pretty painless. What makes it even more painless is if they want to use Facebook or Google to create an account, they can. My client has already used this several times before. So we're going to sign in as Mr. Ricky Rick. And the beauty of this, and some of you may have this question, well, what if I do multiple deals with my client? Do they need a login for every single transaction? No, I've done a lot of business with this client before, and he can look at every transaction that I've ever shared with him from that one login, which is a beautiful thing, right? So again, this is branded to me. They can email me, call me directly from here. It's got my email address, my phone number, my name. They can add their own photo to it. And under the documents here, there's that BIE form, right? There's that add document button. We can give them the ability to upload. When they open the BIE form, they don't have access to that number or the address, but they do have access to these checkboxes. So our client has the ability to go in and say, okay, I want a home inspection. Let's get plumbing. We're going to do the pool, the roof. We'll probably do asbestos. We're going to do natural hazards. So they can fill out things as they need. Let's get a sewer inspection. Let's get some trees inspected. Boom. Well, we're not going to do the well if we're doing the sewer. Let's do the water systems. Perfect. All right. So they filled this out and they say, yeah, I think that's all I need. They're going to hit save. And another question that I get quite often is, well, how do we know that our client actually filled something out? Well, the way that we know is that we get an email from Zip saying, hey, Ricardo updated the BIE form. And we say, oh, great. Now we know that we can go in and take a look at it. So back in our agent account, we can go to our documents here and we can open up that BIE form. Now I'll preview this so that you can get a better view of it. But our clients, all of our clients' responses are recorded there. Obviously, they haven't signed it yet. They just filled it out. But what we're doing is we're separating the task of filling it out and signing it. We're separating that because they're going to make a mistake. It is inevitable they're going to make a mistake. And if they make a mistake and they sign it, they're going to do it over again. In this case, I can see quickly that my client did not check the box for wood destroying pests. I know for a fact that my client wanted a termite inspection. So I can very simply call my client and say, hey, you said you wanted a termite inspection, right? Yeah. Did I not check that? No, you didn't check that. Oh, no problem. They go in, they click that box, they click save. We get another email saying that the BIE was updated. And now when we open it up, we can see, hopefully you can see that. That's still a little dark. We can see that that checkbox has now been checked. Our client was able to go in and correct their mistake. This works the same way for the TDS, the SPQ, the ESD form. If you're working with a tenant, they can fill out their application to rent using zipCommunity. This is a very, very powerful tool that not a lot of agents are using. They're not a lot of agents are utilizing. Okay. So one of the reasons why, and I'll show you one of the reasons why it is so important that you give your client a tool like this is let's find a listing. I think this is a listing. Okay. So for this property on Francisca in Redondo Beach, if I open up that TDS form, we can see that all of these checkboxes, and we're in a different transaction now. This is a listing transaction. My client was able to fill out their portion of it, and maybe they checked a couple of yeses, and they have a lot to say about this particular section of the TDS. Maybe they have a lot to say. They put a lot of text in here, right? Let's put even more text in there. Let's grab even more text. So now we have paragraphs after paragraph of text in here. If they were filling it out via digital signature, they would be locked into the number of lines that the digital signature gave them, which is what, 4.5 in this case. With zipCommunity, they can put as much text in there as they want. And this 3-page TDS, when they preview it, I think you're going to guess correctly, is not going to be 3 pages anymore. It's going to be 5 pages because the TOA triggered. Our client was able to utilize that TOA. So on the paragraph 2C, where it asks us to explain, they can put everything they need. On paragraph 4, agent notes, we can put everything that we need to say. And this, again, like I said, the TOAs will just keep attaching. This is extremely useful. This is a 5-page disclosure now, rather than it being 3. So even though on the contract itself, it tells you attach additional sheets if necessary, the system did it for us. It attached additional sheets as necessary. We didn't have to actually make a PDF with the TDS and several other pages. It did it for us. This is a beautiful thing. Okay. zipCommunity is very, very useful. And I truly believe that you should give it a try. Now, if you also notice here, because I have a share that includes editing, my client has a little paper and pencil. If we hover over it, the little tooltip says can edit forms. And also his share icon is blue, which means that we have an active share going on with this client. Only one person can have editing privileges at a time. In terms of the disclosures, like the BIE form or the TDS SPQ, for working with sellers, if you're sending the TDS and SPQ, the only person that can edit those is the seller 1 role. And in this case, Ricardo is the buyer 1, so he's able to edit that BIE form. If there were another buyer, they would not be able to edit it. If I was working with a seller and there's a seller 2, seller 3, they will not be able to edit that TDS. Only the seller 1 role can actually edit those disclosures. It's called role-based form filling. That's just a little caveat that you need to remember. Okay. So now that my client filled out his BIE form, it's ready to go. Now I can send this for signature. So a lot of people ask me, oh, well, can I use zipCommunity with DocuSign? You can use zipCommunity to get things filled out, and then it doesn't matter what you use to get it actually signed, because all we're doing is, remember, we separated the task of filling it out and signing it. So we already completed the filling. Now we just need to get it signed. So now this is just a normal zipForm document. Doesn't matter where it got edited. It's a normal zipForm document. So we can use digital ink, have that BIE form there. We're going to send it to Ricardo because I'm not signing it in this case. And then we have several options here. Okay. Let's talk about our tools that are available to us here. So we have the option to add more signers. We have the option to add a reviewer. Adding signers is literally that box that came up before with the people. We're just adding more signers. Adding a reviewer, that's a little more complicated. A signer, as you could guess, is actually marking the document. They're putting a signature, they're putting an initial, they're filling something out. A reviewer is not actually making a mark on the document, but they have the same ability to stop the packet dead in its tracks if they don't act. I don't see a lot of use of the reviewer in California, but some use cases that I've seen, maybe you're working with a productivity coach and they want to review the packet prior to it being executed. Maybe your broker wants to review things before they get executed. Maybe your TC is the one preparing things for you and you want to review it prior to it being executed. So you add yourself as a reviewer. There are use cases for it. I don't see a lot of use, but this is an option that is available to you. Okay. The next thing we have is the signing order. So if there were multiple signers, 3, 4, 5, whatever, we can set who gets the packet first, who gets the packet second, third. Maybe we want these people, the last 2 people to get it at the same time. So they're going to be number 4. We can set the order. So what that order means is that when number 1 gets it, no one else got that email yet. Once they completely signed their part of it, then the next person will get it. And then once they've completely signed it, then the next person in the order will get it. There's nothing wrong with everybody getting the packet at the same time. It really just comes down to a preference, right? Or you can just completely turn the signing order off and not have to worry about it. These are options too for you, okay? We also have the option to add cybersecurity protection. This is a SMS text. If you don't have the Elite Agent product in your account, which is about, I don't know how much it is. It's $249, I believe, per year. Then it's going to be $5 per transaction. You can send as many texts as you need per that transaction, but it's going to be $5, and you'll have to pay it at the next between step 3 and step 4. This sends the signer a unique code each time they try to sign, and they have to put in that code from their phone into the computer. It's a 2-factor authentication, just another layer of identity security that is available to you. This is not a member benefit. This is a paid product, but it is available to you. You might also notice that the CC box here is grayed out because everybody is going to receive a carbon copy of the final documents once the packet is done automatically. You can't take that away. Okay. We also have a CC list here, and this CC list is different than the reviewer, because if you CC someone, this is similar to this. If you CC someone, that means that they're going to receive a copy of the executed document once the packet is done, but they have no bearing over the success of the packet. So again, maybe your broker wants to get the documents once the packet's done, but they're not reviewing it so much as they're just getting a copy of it. Maybe you want your TC or your assistant to get an executed copy of the documents once they're done, but they don't have any bearing on the success of the packet. Okay. We also have a time zone. Make sure that your time zone is set correctly. Okay. The last thing you want is for your client to sign something at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and it looks like they signed it at 6 a.m. on a Monday, because by default, the time zone is set to GMT, which is in England, not California. Okay. So your time zone is going to be real weird. You can do a little bit of detective work and do some math. Okay. It's 6 a.m. in GMT. It's 9 or 10 p.m. Yeah. You can do that work, but why do that to yourself, right? Make sure that you have your time zone set correctly. So now that we have all of that out of the way, we can click next. Now you may notice this says that the next step is step 3. When we actually click next, it's going to open a new tab of our browser. And instead of it saying step 3, it's going to say step 4. Nothing is wrong there. It's just DocuSign is built off of another transaction management system that this is step 4. It's a little confusing, but don't worry about it. Everything is the way that it's supposed to be. So if you notice, all of the places that my client didn't check the box are tagged for them to check the box. And we don't want that, right? So we have to go through and delete these, which is, not super tedious, but got to do it because we don't want our client to fill anything else out. We already verified as the professional in this situation that our client filled out the check boxes that they wanted, and we don't need to have them fill anything else out. So this is, it's a little bit of work. I'm just clicking on it and hitting delete, but it's going to make it easier for our client to just go in and sign it, right? If there was something that you needed to add a little bit of text, maybe you actually need to add a checkbox to something, we can do that with our drag and drop and with our markup tools. Okay. So you may notice that there's a text tool in the markup. There's also a text tool in the drag and drop. What are the difference? In the drag and drop, these are all things that the client is going to interact with. The markup tools, these are all things that you, as the person creating the packet, are going to interact with. So if I add markup text here, this is not editable by the signer. Okay. Not editable by the signer. But if I add a text field here, this is going to be a text box that the client, Ricardo in this case, can edit. 2 different types of text: markup, drag and drop. Maybe I need to add another signature. I can click and drag it out of here. I can click a date and put it here. Or if I'm fancy, I can click this little sprocket and say, add a date stamp, and it's going to add it automatically. Maybe I want to be even more specific, add a timestamp. I can add time here, right? Those are options for you. There are mandatory signatures, optional signatures, mandatory initials, optional initials. The initial group, there really aren't any forms in the California library that use an initial group, so we won't talk about that. We have mandatory checkboxes, optional checkboxes. We have radio buttons. Radio buttons are, if there is an A, B, or C choice, it's going to be one of 3, not just, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. You can only pick one of a certain set of responses. That's where radio buttons come in. So on the disclosures, that's why when it tags it automatically, you see a yes or no. They're round. They're radio buttons. They're not checkboxes. We have a date. We can add the signer's name. We can tell them to initial an entire page. If we want, we can tell the system where we want that initial to go. Markup tools, we don't have access to the pen or the line because that would allow you to strike things out. Strikeout is completely unavailable for you. But once I've verified that, okay, everything I need is going to be here, I can hit next, and it's going to ask me, do you want to send the invitations just as is, or do I want to customize the subject and the message that goes to my client? At this point, I just want to send the invitation. Oh, they added Spanish to it. That's nice. That's new. All right. So they sent that, and now my client in a moment will receive an email saying that his signature is requested. He's going to hit start signing. And when they get there, there's one page with 4 signing blocks. Now, Rick has already signed to 4, so he drew his signature. That's fine. If he wanted to select a font style, he could do that, but he's already drawn his initials in his signature, so he's going to keep that. He has to accept the end user license agreement and the terms of service. And now we can see what the actual client experience sees. Let me just zoom in on this a little bit. So our client doesn't need to fill any of this out because they already filled it out. This is their name. That, remember, we added the signer name. We added that markup text, not editable by the signer. This is very much editable by the signer. This is drag and drop text. They're going to sign it. It's going to ask them, do you want to complete the signing or stay in review? They can still get in there and edit it if they need to. Hit complete signing. Now the signing is done. Now, because we started the packet from inside of zipForm, it's going to go back to zipForm. Whenever a signer completes their signing, it's going to bring them to this login page, and it's going to say, hey, do you want a zipCommunity account? And if they've never used it, again, they can create an account. Or in the case of my client, Rick can say, oh, yeah, I'm going to sign in. And again, I'm going to get an email from DocuSign saying that the buyer's investigation elections has been updated. It's been signed. And if my client goes to his e-signatures here, he's going to see, oh, there's the BIE form. It's completed. And he can open up that BIE form. So now he has access to that signed document, not just from his email, but from a secure encrypted portal that I have provided him. Kind of a beautiful thing, right? Now, maybe you are a DocuSign user, and we can go through this real quick, okay? I got this filled out, this BIE form. I got it filled out via zipCommunity, but maybe I am a DocuSign user. I'm gonna click DocuSign, click next. Ricardo's signing this, check his box. And you notice that there are, less options here and here and here and here. There's less. Some agents, that's why they prefer DocuSign, because it's just a little bit more cut and dry. It really comes down to preference. They do the exact same thing. They get things signed and they bring it back to your zipForm account. Now, when we do this, again, remember we had to delete all of the checkboxes. We're going to do the same thing with DocuSign. The one difference is that rather than clicking and hitting delete on everything, we have the ability to kind of drag and select multiple at the same time. So we can delete all of them a little bit quicker, right? If I needed to add a signature, if I needed to add a text box, I can do that. And then again, remember we had the markup or like the editable or the non-editable, they combine that into one with this. So if I want to say not editable, I have to say this is read only. If I want one that is editable, I can drag that there. I can leave it as not read only, and the client will be able to fill that out. Again, I still have the same, signer's name here. Radio buttons, I have check boxes, approve or decline. I have all the same tools, but they're on the left side versus the right side. It's really the only difference. I can click send. The invitation is going to go out to my client. I know that we're 1 minute away. They can do this. Click review document. Again, they're going to have to agree to the terms of service and the EULA. We have that not editable text. We have that very much editable text. They can sign it. He's already drawn his signature. And we can say finish. Again, it's going to ask them, hey, do you want a DocuSign account to be able to view documents later? I never had any clients that did that. You're finished signing. Back inside of our zipForm account, this is probably, so this is the DocuSign one. And then in a minute, the DocuSign one will come through. But either way, we were able to get this BIE form filled out, and then we sent it for signature. Beautiful thing. Right on the dot, right at 11 a.m. Thank you guys so much for spending the hour with me. Again, my name is Jackson Beaudelaire. I am a transaction and training supervisor. Thank you so much to the North San Diego County Association of Realtors for making this possible. I love teaching you guys, and I will be out next year live and in person teaching you zipForm at some point during the year. Okay. I want to thank you, Shirley, and let's get out there and make some money, guys. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackson.
You guys take care.
All right.